My name is Kathy Johnson, and some of you are familiar with how we do this. Our dear friend, the Reverend Rebecca Schroeder, can't be here with us in body, but I speak her words this morning. I could not speak nearly this eloquently or beautifully. Ever see the movie The Christmas Story? It features little Ralphie, who very much wants a Red Ryder carbine action 200-shot range model air rifle with a compass in the stock and this thing which tells time. Everyone tells him to forget it because he'll shoot his eye out. In between scheming to get his BB gun, Ralph and his friends and little brother have to go to school. On the way, they have run-ins with Scott Farkas, the neighborhood bully. Mostly, the kids try to run away. One day, though, Ralph gets cornered and taunted by Farkas. We see the white-hot flame of anger flicker to life in Ralph's eyes. He's had enough. He tackles Farkas and beats him in the next week. This is a perfect example of the fight-or-flight reaction to fear. In both, your adrenaline kicks your body into high gear. Never thought you could run that fast or hit that hard? This is one reaction we have to fear stimuli. The other you know if you've ever been driving and have come upon a deer in the road, seemingly frozen to the spot. Freeze. Happens to human, too. Like this one time back in the day when I was working construction, we were putting a vent through a cinder block wall, about 25 feet up this wall. I scampered up the extension ladder, cocked the grill, then looked down before heading down. Big mistake. It was a blank wall. No windows, nothing. 25 feet of nothing. Finally, my work buddy put up a second ladder and helped me get down. Apprentice in the headlights. Boy. That's what the disciples are all about in today's reading. They're afraid. They're scared. So they did what any right-thinking person would do. They locked the door. They've been in this room since Friday afternoon, huddled together, starting at every sound. They about lost their minds when Mary came earlier that day, pounding on the door. "I've seen the Lord," she claimed. Yeah, right. The fellas were waiting for the Romans to come round them up, and here she comes with her wild delusional story. Go away, Mary, you'll shoot your eye out. Okay, time for a brief trip to Greek land. The disciples were holed up in the imperfect tense. This wasn't a simple past tense locking, a one and done deal. No, this was the imperfect. It was continuing. It was habitual, as was their fear. They were paralyzed. Enter Jesus. Seriously, locked doors and all. Suddenly he was just there, blessing them with peace, no doubt so their hearts wouldn't pound right out of their chests. Then he breathes the Spirit into them, sends them out. Right, like they're leaving the safety of this room, and mentions something about forgiving or retaining sins. Before they can say, huh? He's gone again. Just so happens that our boy Thomas wasn't there for all this. Not there in the imperfect, which implies his continued absence. It had become his habit not to hang out with the gang. Maybe he was staying with family in Jerusalem. Maybe he just didn't like the smell of fear. Fear has a distinct smell, you know, ask any dog. Maybe those disciples were too unbelieving for him, or too believing, or too talky, or too loud, or too much. Point is, Thomas wasn't there. Again. One morning, Thomas picks up some bagels and decides to see if his old mates are still holding up in that room. He gives the secret knock. Here's a chair being pulled away from the door, and they let him in. "We've seen the Lord," they say to him. He sits down without saying anything. "We have seen the Lord, really?" He just showed up like nothing ever happened. Thomas pulls an everything bagel from the bag and brushes away the poppy seeds. They get in his teeth. "We have seen the Lord," they kept telling him, because that too is in the imperfect. Finally, he gets tired of their juvenile games and says it. "I don't believe you." Now we're getting someplace. "Don't believe us? He was here, standing here, big as life, breath and sins and..." "Nope, don't believe you. I watched him die, remember?" "Oh, no, that's right. You wouldn't remember because you ran away." "You calling us liars?" "No, I'm calling you cowards and liars." But still, they kept insisting in the imperfect tense. Finally, Thomas had had enough. "Look, you lunkheads, unless I see the marks of the nails in his hands and put my finger in the mark of the nails and my hand in his side, I will not believe." That shut them up. Thomas stomped out. The next weekend, the whole gang was gathered again, Thomas included this time. Same story. Locked doors, secret knocks, the smell of fear. Then suddenly, Jesus. "Peace to you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not be an unbelieving person, but believing." That annoying half smile. Finally, Thomas drops to one knee in front of Jesus and says, "My Lord and my God." Jesus smiles a huge smile now, laughs, and helps Thomas up. Personally, I think Thomas gets a bad rap. Do you remember being told not to be afraid to ask questions? There are no dumb or bad questions. That's what they tell us when we're young. But then they get annoyed when we have the unmitigated gall to question them. I remember ruffling some feathers when asking, who Cain and Abel married? Or who were the people Cain was afraid were trying to kill him? My teachers soon regretted that whole ask questions stance. If you think about this story, Thomas isn't the only one not to believe just because he'd been told. Mary had told the disciples, "I've seen the Lord." They laughed at her. They didn't immediately believe. In fact, they only believed after they had seen what Thomas said he needed to see in order to believe. Thomas wasn't asking for anything that others hadn't already gotten. But he gets the negative label. What gives? I think that you can't have true faith without ever having experienced doubt. My own personal faith journey includes years of doubt, and not just about the resurrection. I struggled for a long time with the very existence of God. My faith is stronger, I think, because I did have to struggle. Now I see God and God's love and handiwork all around me. Then, all I saw was gray and fog. Looking back now, though, I also see that God never gave up on me, even though for a while I've given up on God. There is another response to fear I can think of: anger. That goes a long way to explaining our political situation. Just speaking for my own self, I can also trace back almost every dumb thing I've done in my life. Yeah, most but not all. Some were done out of sheer stupidity. To fear. Afraid the person I loved didn't love me. Afraid my parents wouldn't accept me. Afraid my peers would make fun of me. These thoughts are almost universally accompanied by the words, "Oh yeah? I'll show them." And we all know how well all those endeavors worked out. Fear isn't the best place from which to make decisions. It makes you do goofy stuff, like locking yourself in a room. Locking yourself in a room, thinking you can keep the world from changing around you. Locking yourself in a room, thinking you can keep out the risen Lord. Locking yourself in a room when that risen Lord has tried to send you out into the world. Doubt, on the other hand, I think is quite useful. Doubt gets us to ask questions. Fear makes us too ready to accept answers thoughtlessly, relieved just to have an answer, any answer. Doubt will send us seeking, journeying, seldom satisfied until we have exhausted many options, looking for the best solution. Fear, on the other hand, closes us off, shuts us down, locks us up. Doubt keeps pricking at us, not letting us rest, accept, have blind faith. Fear closes our eyes, minds, and hearts. Some churches could double as Doubters Anonymous meeting places. I once temped with a lady who had joined her current church because they had the answers for all her questions. That is so not us. This is from the website of the church I used to pastor, telling who we are. We are a group of like-minded folks in a community of seekers. We seek to better understand our place in the universe, in God's creation, in our immediate community here in Guerneville. We embrace the questions, knowing there is no one-size-fits-all answer. We can't tell you what's what, but we will walk with you on the journey. I stand by what I've always said about running away from anyone who claims to have all the answers. I don't think we've even got all the questions. There will always be something new that comes up, something we haven't thought of before or thought of in quite that way. As we turn things over and around in our hearts and minds, new questions will always come to light. Good. One of the reasons I love preaching so much is that I always learn so much doing the prep work. I don't know what all I don't know. I do know that I don't know a lot. Despite the negative connotations that seem to have built up over the years, I don't think Thomas is a bad guy. In fact, he's kind of my hero. Thomas is the patron saint of architects. I think he should also be the patron saint of academics and seekers after knowledge of all kinds. Traditionally, he's pictured as a young man with a scroll. If I were to draw him, he'd be the guy with the question mark over his head. Doubt is important. Doubt makes us ask questions, compels us to seek more information, to get closer to the truth. Faith without doubt is simply fact. 2 + 2 = 4. Facts are fine, and they have their place. But facts aren't what makes life worth living. It's the great intangibles that make life worth living, things not easily quantifiable. It's the gray areas, the mystery, those areas in which we can experience growth. Love makes life worthwhile. And yes, faith. Hallelujah and amen.